Are you one of these people? Intermittent fasting is one of the most powerful methods of fat loss, bar none. Its efficacy when it comes to specifically targeting body fat and burning it for energy is unparalleled. I mean, name a diet that's more powerful. I'll wait. Having said that, unfortunately, it's not safe for everyone. In this video, I'm going to show you 7 different types of people who shouldn't do intermittent fasting. Let's start with the controversial one. You should not do intermittent fasting if you're currently overdoing it. And a lot of people are guilty of this. The key to making intermittent fasting work, especially in the long term, is actually in the name itself. You need to fast intermittently. Intermittent means occurring at irregular times, not continuous or steady. Truth be told, I used to be one of those purists with the mentality that more is always better. But just like with a lot of things, you can definitely have too much of a good thing. This can be seen in an 8-week study of an 8-hour feeding window, and they saw a significant decline in testosterone. And that just doesn't apply to men. Women need testosterone as well. A few years ago, I did OMAD every day for about a year. At first, I got amazing results. I got super lean, but eventually it started to affect me negatively. My testosterone wasn't optimal. I was always cold. I had cramping problems. It started to affect my sleep. It made so much sense after seeing that study. And it's actually a pretty easy fix. Just change it up. Be inconsistent with your fasting schedule. For example, on weekdays, maybe do a 16 or 18-hour fast. And then on weekends, maybe have breakfast or brunch with your family and operate on a 12 or 14-hour eating window. I mean, that's what I do these days. On Sundays, I'll have some pancakes made out of sprouted grains with some sliced banana drizzled with raw and organic honey. And my body is so much happier because of it. Maybe throw in the occasional 24-hour fast once every couple of weeks, especially if you know you're having a big meal that night. You can save all your calories for that one meal. There's even new studies that for women, doing intermittent fasting just 3 days a week is enough to get them benefits. And here's the kicker. You also want to do an occasional fast from fasting. Yep, you heard that right. Like, take a break from it. Obviously, you still want to eat a proper diet when you do this, but it's okay to take a break from it every once in a while. To me, that sounds way more sustainable. Number 2, you should not do intermittent fasting if you have an eating disorder. In fact, you should do the complete opposite of fasting. You should focus on nourishing your body and mind. The reason is pretty simple. Food is the remedy for anorexia nervosa. Seeing a therapist might help as well, so you can have someone guide you when it comes to improving your relationship with food and yourself. And while we're in this topic, you shouldn't fast if you're malnourished or you're underweight. Like, you can't subsist on 1,000 calories a day. Focus on food quality. Food quality is directly tied to brain neurochemistry, by the way. And we'll talk about which foods I'm referring to in a second here. Number 3, you shouldn't do intermittent fasting if you're a teenager. Adequate nutrition is required for proper growth. This is especially true for kids going through a growth spurt. You shouldn't even be thinking about fasting at this point. Listen, missing a meal here and there isn't a bad thing. Let's say you sleep in on weekends and you miss breakfast, that's fine. So if you're a teenager who's watching this, or you're a parent, or you have a sibling who's a teenager, I know how important it is to have a positive body image at that age. Because kids are savages, like they have no filter. Trust me, I know. I used to get bullied when I was a kid. I think it's more important to teach kids how to make proper food choices instead of thinking about intermittent fasting to lose weight. And if you want to get rid of excess body fat, here's a very simple plan you can use. Avoid industrial seed oils, aka vegetable oils, as if your life depends on it. Toss them out. You can cook with coconut oil or butter instead. And make sure to read labels because this stuff is everywhere. You can even find it in baby formula. Don't drink liquid calories, avoid refined carbs and refined sugar, as well as artificial sweeteners. Eat the least toxic plants. Yep, you heard that right. All plants exist in a spectrum of toxicity. Kale is not your friend. Lastly, get adequate protein from animals and animal products. And if you want a step-by-step plan, make sure to download the Lean Body Blueprint by clicking on the link at the top right-hand corner or in the description below. It's completely free. Number 4, you shouldn't do intermittent fasting if you're pregnant. I mean, this should be obvious, like there's a human being growing inside of you. which means that whatever you eat, the baby also eats, which also means that if you don't eat anything, like if you do intermittent fasting, well, the baby also doesn't eat anything. That is not a good thing for a developing fetus that requires adequate nutrients for optimal growth. And any deficiency may cause irreversible damage. I mean, you shouldn't even be thinking about losing weight at this point. What you should be focusing on is properly nourishing your body during pregnancy. Revolve your diet around single ingredient, mostly unprocessed, nutrient-dense foods. And again, avoid seed oils and refined carbs. Eat organs, meat, fruit, and raw and organic honey, the most sought-after foods in human history. Extra bonus points if you consume organ meat like grass-fed and grass-finished beef liver. It's widely considered to be the most nutrient-dense and bioavailable food on the planet. It's the superfood of all superfoods. You get access to hard-to-find nutrients in its most bioavailable form, like copper, taurine, choline, vitamin K2, carnosine, carnitine, creatine, folate, glycine, and so much more. Hunter-gatherers like the Hadza in Tanzania treat the liver as the most prized part of the animal. Now, once the baby is born, you can get back into your intermittent fasting routine unless you're breastfeeding. This is just a little bit of continuity in that you shouldn't do intermittent fasting yet if you're nursing a baby. Again, the baby receives all the nutrients from you, the mom, through breast milk, so the baby eats what you eat. If you start fasting and you don't get the proper nutrients and minerals, guess what? Your baby won't receive it either. Again, possibly risking irreversible damage if you fast while you're breastfeeding. It's just not worth it. Again, it's okay to miss a meal here and there, but you shouldn't even be thinking about doing a 24 or 48-hour fast while breastfeeding. That's just silly. The good thing is breastfeeding is only temporary. Afterwards, you can start working on getting your pre-baby body back. Just like one of my coaching clients over here, she was able to drop her pregnancy weight, which was 80 pounds. Now, intermittent fasting isn't completely off the table for these next two types of people, but you should definitely consult with a knowledgeable health practitioner if you want to try it. And this is not medical advice, by the way. If you're taking any sort of medication, you should definitely consult with your doctor first if you want to do intermittent fasting. For the most part, you can still do intermittent fasting if you're taking any medication that needs to be taken with food, especially if you're just doing a short-term fast like a 16-hour fast, because you're technically not going the full day without food. Now, things get a little bit more serious if you're taking blood sugar medication. You need to consult with a medical professional if you have diabetes and you want to do intermittent fasting, because this can be life-threatening stuff. And the reason is pretty simple. One of the benefits of intermittent fasting is that it moderates insulin and blood sugar levels. That's a good thing. But if you also take blood sugar lowering medication like metformin on top of intermittent fasting, then you're possibly risking your body going into a state of hypoglycemia. Hypoglycemia is when your blood sugar gets too low, and it can be life-threatening. You need to ingest some sugar right away to reverse this life-threatening situation. The good thing is combining intermittent fasting with a low-carb diet is probably one of the best ways to reverse type 2 diabetes. But again, you need to work with a professional. Now, I mentioned the term knowledgeable health practitioner earlier for a reason. Make sure that your health practitioner, and it always puzzles me when I see overweight doctors or malnourished looking nutritionists, make sure they're up to date with the latest information on nutrition science. Let me make this clear. This is not about body shaming people. Again, I got fat shamed into working out when I was a teenager. But we need to be able to have an honest conversation about this. I mean, you wouldn't take financial advice from someone who's broke, right? The exact same thing goes with health professionals. That's why you should choose your health influencer wisely. For example, type 2 diabetes is not a chronic disease. It's completely reversible, like we're talking weeks. Again, this is not medical advice. Like if your doctor thinks otherwise, you need a new doctor. Preferably someone who's walking the talk and is up to date with nutrition science and isn't just satisfied to prescribe pills. You need to treat the root cause. I mean, check out Dr. Nick over here. His handle is The Fittest Doc. Or Dr. Paul Saladino, one of my favorites. His handle is Carnivore MD 2.0. Check out Dr. Gabrielle Lyon, who practices something called muscle-centric medicine. She's way ahead of the curve. Dr. Sean Baker is an absolute stud at 55. Dr. Lisa Weidman, check that out. She's 56. I would much rather listen to what those doctors have to say. I was watching a fellow YouTuber who's a nutritionist, and this person is big on intermittent fasting. But this person is rail thin. Like, we're talking skin and bones. Most likely overdoing it with intermittent fasting. You gotta evolve your stance when presented with new information in this industry. That's why I'm completely off the bandwagon of the carbohydrate and insulin weight loss model. I eat organs, meat, fruit, and honey every day. I got my blood work done recently and everything looks great. I also cycle my intermittent fasting schedule. At 35 years old, I feel better now than when I was a competitive athlete in my 20s. Back to nutrition science, the US also recently dropped their guidelines on avoiding foods high in cholesterol. Bet you didn't see that on the news. I mean, cholesterol and saturated fat were wrongly vilified to begin with. They were never bad for you. There are many interventional studies to prove that. I mean, if cholesterol was so bad for you, why does your own body make its own cholesterol? You would die without it. In fact, the more saturated fat from grass-fed and grass-finished ruminant animals you include in your diet, the healthier you'll be. Fun fact, I actually have a few doctors in my online coaching program. At the end of the day, intermittent fasting is generally safe for most people, other than the 7 I just mentioned. And even then, there are levels. And again, there's nothing wrong with missing a meal here and there. Your body is well designed to handle it. Now, if you enjoyed this video and want to keep doing a deep dive because there's so much more to learn, then you're gonna love this one. I'll see you there.